we are back online. My computer's having a shit. It's taking a crap right on my desk. Do 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 do. In hindsight, with a very swollen throat and my nose being the way that it is, it might not have been wise to be drinking soda. Aside from the fact that I 100% have a caffeine addiction. Still am. I can't read chat at the moment. I'm trying to get things booted back up. It's taken a long time. It makes me want to cry. Hello, everybody. Alright, if you can hear me in chat, let me know. Oh, never mind. I can hear myself. Mute, you foul bastard. The fucking stream in my end. Okay, so we have my browser back up, it seems. I just need to get Discord properly working, and from there we can figure something out, I guess. Okay. Don't waste your time on me, I'm already a voice inside my head. Okie dokie. Super Mario Wahoo, here we go. This half of the edible, it was hitting way harder than the other fucking 3 halves. Hey!
The internet allows you to do whatever you want.
The internet might have gotten my fucking computer hacked by Russian bots. Let's be honest. Bring back Discord. Okay, cool. What else was I looking at? Right. That's what I was doing. I was doing a thing. A thing to thing, the thing, the thing to thing, the thing of the thing. Yeah. I apologize, this is taking a bit. Okay. That should fix that. Now, why is... Okay. Let's see. Please, I just want you to work. I guess we're gonna have to wait on that for a bit. In the meantime, here you guys go.
Revolution.
Look at everything else online.
Have you ever clicked on a website and instantly regret it? Well, you're not the only one. There are over 1 billion websites in the world today, with about 10,000 new websites created every hour. While most of these websites have positive content, some are terrifying. We'll explore unsettling websites, starting from the lighter stuff to the more disturbing sites at trees and use.
Okay, here we go. We're back to the video, roughly where we were. The video's too loud, by the way. Have you considered maybe you're too quiet?
Users can filter by places, cities.
Okay, let me... Shouldn't be too loud. I don't know why it's coming off that loud. but I'll lower it to that. Okay. Is this better?
Time zones. But how does Instacam get access
Looks like it might
to
be
these
better.
private webcams?
By a bit.
Many people install cameras in their homes
Could probably lower it a bit more on YouTube's end.
and offices for security.
Yeah, that's
they
better.
set up the
There you go.
camera, connect it to the internet, and forget about it. But there's a problem. Every new camera comes
Also,
with a
it's a
default
joke.
password already programmed into it. This default password is the same for every camera from that manufacturer.
Because they only use default passwords, so it's easy for them to print out the booklet once and send it all in the same box.
When setting up a new camera, users are supposed to change the default password to a password they choose. Not changing the default password means that the webcam footage is available for
Audio
all
mixing?
internet
No, it's
users to
just
view.
this
You
guy.
know the
He's
default
really loud for
password,
some
they know
reason.
the default password, and simply logging in like they were you.
The simple mistake allows Instacam to
'Cause it wasn't a
access
problem
cameras
before him.
with default passwords and stream the footage online. Instacam's access to these webcams isn't due to a
At least no
hack
one brought
or
it up.
malware. Many people just don't change their default settings when installing
again, Twitch chat
internet-connected
sometimes doesn't
cameras. The creator
warn about
of
anything.
Instacam has worked hard to stay anonymous, making it tough for authorities to catch him. However, Instacam's IP address shows the site is from Russia. As more people complained about the site, the anonymous creator of Instacam granted an interview to the Huffington Post. During the interview,
say,
he
Abby?
emphasized that he was proud of his site, stating, "I do not have regrets. I did a great job to show the problem of neglectful users. Without this example, users do
Okay,
not care about the
Hatsune Miku is
password."
back.
He emphasized that none of the
Cool.
cameras had been hacked. If users change the
If
password
I want to
on
play
their
music on
cameras,
music,
there's
or
no
we have
easy
to-
way for
we have
someone
the
to
music
gain
and have to
access.
make sure it's
These people
loud.
are clearly trying
Yeah,
to make a
it's
statement
annoying.
about, passwords and not using the default passwords.
However, many people doubt if Instacam's intentions are actually good. Writer Lance Ulanoff asked the question, if the site's aim was really to help, why would it list thousands of webcams instead of just a handful? When asked if Instacam's creator felt bad for anyone whose privacy was invaded, he showed no remorse and said this: "Do you think their privacy is not invaded without my site? There are tons of video records and images on anonymous image boards." After receiving a lot of complaints, Instacam changed its policies. Now, anyone who discovers their camera on Instacam can email them to get it taken off the site. However, the easiest way to get a camera off Instacam is clear.
Change the default password. Make it something that's unique to you, and then the bad guys can't get in.
What, Abby?
Instacam changed their policies to make their site less creepy, whatever that means. Plane Crash Info.
Just
Plane
hide.
Crash Info is a website that collects real stories of plane crashes. The site has data about hundreds of crashes, including the date, location, what caused the crash,
bye-bye.
and if there were any survivors. However, there's one
Go
part of the
bye-bye.
site that's heartbreaking. Plane Crash Info has a section dedicated to cockpit voice recordings. These are the recordings of what the pilots and
not
crew
what it-
were
it's
saying
not what you
while the
think.
plane was going down. It's like listening to someone and hearing the panic in their voice
Okay,
as they
talk later.
realize their life is coming to an end. In the nav bar of the website, there's a button labeled Last Words. Clicking on it takes you to a page with cockpit voice recordings, transcripts, and air traffic control tapes. There's a warning at the top of the page: caution may be disturbing to some individuals. Discretion is advised. Clicking on any of these links allows you to hear the voice recordings or read the transcripts. As you scroll down the page, you'll also see the final words of each recording listed next to the flight name. They include statements like "Ma, I love you," "Good night, goodbye, we perish." Although this is uncomfortable to read, there's another page on the site that's just as upsetting. It's called Strange and Unusual Accidents. As the name suggests, this page lists all the planes that have crashed for bizarre reasons. The reports go as far back as 1930.
Okay, everything
There's
should
a
be
story
back
of
online.
an aircraft that collided with a hot air balloon, a vulture that crashed
Kind
through
of.
a pilot's window.
Don't
and a
worry, though.
passenger
I
whose cigarette
have got things under
accidentally set a
control.
plane on fire. There are many
I
other
know.
interesting pages on the website, including one that categorizes crashes by airline. Another page talking about famous people in plane crashes. A page with pictures of plane wrecks. A page that uses Google Earth to show the exact spot where a plane went down. And last but not least, there's the 100 Worst page, which lists 100 of the worst crashes ever recorded. Although the site was created to educate people about aviation safety, the level of detail about the crashes and fatalities creates a deeply unsettling experience for visitors. But while everything on Plane Crash Info is factual, this next site has information that most people would find too crazy to be true. The Black Vault. The Black Vault isn't just a website, it's a treasure trove of secrets. Created in 1996, the Black Vault contains over 1.4 million pages of declassified documents about top secret government cover-ups. The site also contains in-depth essays and discussions about the most bizarre conspiracy theories in the world. This includes information about hitmen, aliens, the Illuminati, and even Bigfoot. Although the content on the Black Vault is pretty weird, it gets even crazier when you discover the site was created by a 15-year-old kid.
We're 15 years old. How did you get involved in this?
Back in 1996, while still in high school, John Greenwald Jr. became fascinated by aliens and UFOs. His interest grew when he stumbled upon a website that said it had reliable, verifiable information about an alien mothership flying over Iran.
This is
The site
interesting.
claimed to have gotten its information from declassified documents from the US government. John Greenwald Jr. was impressed by what he read and felt there was more
Alright, we're
secrets being hidden by
back.
secret agencies. So for the next 28 years, Greenwald devoted himself to finding and publishing reports about conspiracy theories, secret projects, and declassified documents. Greenwald's work led to the creation of
I do
the
apologize for the
blackvault.com,
interruption,
where you
though.
can find information about the wildest conspiracy theories. However, the most bizarre story on the
That's
Black Vault
just a
involves
theory.
secret
A
mind control
conspiracy
experiments that
theory.
took place in the 50s. MK Ultra was a top secret
I am
program
going
involving
down.
mind control experiments conducted by the CIA between 1953 and 1973. The purpose of the program was to develop ways to
going
control
down.
human behavior,
So
extract
many days. This is
information,
wasted
and
for me.
even implant false memories. The Black Vault has 20,000 pages of MK Ultra documents diving into the darkest aspects of the program. MK Ultra involved a wide range of strange experiments, including hypnosis and brainwashing. They even tried to create a truth serum that, when injected, would make it impossible to lie. If this isn't creepy enough, the Black Vault claims MK Ultra was trying to use mind control to create hitmen who would obey any order and carry out lethal missions. It's no surprise MK Ultra has been described as 100 James Bond movie ideas rolled into a pile of real-life experiments. The project is pretty bizarre. However, the Black Vault's theories about aliens are also out of this world, pun intended. People have been interested in aliens and UFOs since 1947, when a man named Kenneth Arnold claimed he'd seen 9 objects flying through the air like saucers skipping on water. Since then, more people have shared stories about alien abductions, alien encounters, and unidentified flying objects. This has fueled conspiracy
Spooky.
theories that the government is withholding information about
That
alien
sounds
activity
pretty cool
on
to
Earth.
me.
The Black Vault contains approximately 2,780
feel like
pages
I'm
of
still
CIA
dying.
documents about unidentified flying objects. Declassified by the CIA in the 80s, these reports contain stories that suggest aliens might be among us.
Millions of government documents regarding UFOs that have since been released through your website, Black Vault. Is there damning evidence amongst these files? I mean, what do we need to know?
The documents
Taking
cover
the
UFO
cookie.
sightings from various regions, including Morocco, Iran, and Ukraine. There are accounts
Well,
of
things have been good
strange
for you as of
late-night
late. They've been
explosions in a
interesting.
tiny Russian town, a suspicious
had
aircraft flying over a
only
military
5 hours
base,
of
and
sleep
more
between the
unexplained
last
events.
But even after this passage of time, there's nothing to
56 hours?
explain a UFO that was seen over Tehran. Multiple UFOs were seen coming out of it.
The files also include confidential messages from CIA UFO experts discussing the possibility of aliens living on our planet. Greenwald has been called a folk hero to the UFO community because of the information on his website. Exit Mundi. Exit Mundi is a website that lists and describes all the ways
I'm
the
fine.
world could end. From
I'm sick of
asteroids
eating
hitting the
bananas
Earth
for
to
weeks.
AI
I want
taking
cookie. I want
over,
fucking
Exit
bananas.
Mundi talks
Delicious
about
too.
everything.
Trade at this
The
point.
website's writer claims
You give
to
me
use
bananas,
scientific analysis
I
to
give
make
you
each
diabetes.
end of the world theory seem more
Seems
believable,
perfectly
as
fine.
if it could really happen. Before Exit Mundi became a disturbing website, it was just a site someone made for fun. Martin Keulemans, a professional science journalist from the Netherlands, launched Exit Mundi in 2001.
What is Exit
He started the
Mundi?
site because he enjoyed researching and writing articles about the end of the world. As time passed, Keulemans kept on collecting more and more scenarios until the website was famous for its list of scary doomsday predictions.
Oh,
One of Exit
these.
Mundi's weirdest predictions is the mass insanity scenario. In the scenario, everyone in the world goes insane. The streets will be full of lunatics climbing trees, jumping off buildings, and flapping their arms like birds. Even military commanders would go crazy and launch nuclear weapons weapons which would destroy the world. However, Exit Mundi predicted the mass insanity scenario would occur in the year 2020, which was 4 years ago. Exit Mundi has a bunch of other odd theories of why this world could end. There's the Big Crumble, which describes a scenario where everything breaks apart and humans melt into rancid puddles of liquid. Then there's the classic earth-shattering kaboom, where a massive asteroid impact or a super volcano eruption obliterates the planet. And finally, the Robot War, a scenario in which machines revolt against humanity, which, by the way AI is evolving, might not be too far-fetched. Exit Mundi isn't the only website that talks about the end of life. This next website takes things to a new level by making it very personal. Death date.
They say to live every day like it's your last, but what if you knew when your actual last day on Earth was going to come? A new website claims it can calculate the day you are gonna...
Death Date is a mysterious site that says it can predict the exact date anyone will meet their demise. The site asks for some information and then calculates your date of death in seconds. It's a disturbing idea, and some people actually wonder if the date they're given is when their life will truly end. When you arrive on the site, you're greeted by a dark homepage with a skull in the background. There's a message at the center of the page that says, "This mysterious tool will give you the answer to the most important question of your life, when your time will come. Don't wait any longer, go to the Death Date form, enter your or someone else's details, and click calculate. The site will process your data and calculate the death date. Remember, you're using this site at your own risk. The site has other features, like an entire page with a long list of celebrities predicting when each of them will pass away. A-listers like Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt, Britney Spears, Eminem, and even Beyonce are on the list. Like many strange websites, no one knows who made this site or why. However, the website appears to have been around for a while, with the footer showing copyright from 2006. So how exactly is the death date calculated? To figure out the date, the website requires your name, birthday, sex, height, weight, and stimulants. The message on the form says, "Please fill out this form. Don't be afraid to share your data. It's necessary only for your death date calculations. The only thing you should be concerned about is the time you have left." Once the information has been provided, the user can click calculate to see the prediction. While most people think the date is a prank, there are some that take this very seriously. A few years ago, there was a Reddit post warning people not to use death date prediction websites. In the post, a Reddit user tells the story of a friend, Zach, whose life unexpectedly ended on the exact date predicted by the website. But instead of the story scaring people away from the website, it had the opposite effect. Dozens of people from the Reddit group rushed to the site to check their dates, and minutes later returned to share which date they got. One said, "I checked the site. Apparently, I'll die at age 72. I'm fine with that. I'll have a full life and get things done that I'll want to do." Another said June 14th, 2080. Pretty long life right there. We don't know if the Reddit story is true or not, but it might convince certain people that websites like Death Date give accurate predictions.
And other people will make crazy decisions and say, "Well, I've only got 2 years left, so I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to, cycle around."
It's like the Tim McGraw song,
For many people, the thought of passing away triggers fear, but this next website instills fear because it could put you in real danger.
Let's just look quality again, but yeah.
In October 2023, NPR published an article titled "Too Dangerous: Why Even Google Was Afraid to Release This Technology." According to the article, back in 2011, Google developed facial recognition technology that could scan and find faces online. However, after spending millions of dollars creating the software, Google realized it would be too dangerous if it fell into the wrong hands.
Google decided not to release its tool that would have let users search a photo with a face and find other images with that face online.
Years later, another team of developers invented the same technology, except this time they released it to the world. It's called PimEyes, and it's been described by multiple news outlets as the most disturbing AI website on the internet. Launched in 2017 by software engineers from Poland, PimEyes is an AI website that lets you upload a photo of a person, then it searches the internet to find other photos of that same person. It's like a search engine for faces. If the person you're searching for appears in any photo on publicly accessible sites like Tumblr, news outlets, and blogs, PimEyes will find it.
It scans your face and it shows every single photo of you that is on the internet.
This could be the most dangerous superpower in the world of science fiction.
Here's how the technology works. PimEyes analyzes masses of faces on the internet for individual characteristics and stores the biometric data. When a user tries to search for someone, it compares the face to those in the database and delivers matching faces as a result. The results also show the domain name where the photo was found. The creators of PimEyes say it helps people protect their privacy by finding where their photos are being used online. In 2020, PimEyes claimed their database contains 900 million faces based on photos they've analyzed on the internet. PimEyes rules state that users should only search for themselves or people who have given their consent. However, there's nothing preventing anyone from searching for others.
So what happens when a stranger on the street or online can find your identity in less than a second?
The basic version of PimEyes is free for anyone to use. However, the company also has advanced features for monthly fee. That's where the problems begin. With a paid subscription, PimEyes allows users to upload images of different people and get alerts whenever a new photo of those people appear online. Critics say this is a stalker's dream because as long as they've got a photo on you, they can use the site to track down more. By combining information from blog posts and photos on a workplace website, a stalker might be able to find out where someone works or lives.
There are no checks on who can use their service, which allows users to stalk dozens of people each day and set face alerts for up to 500 different images.
Others are concerned that PimEyes will destroy the concept of privacy, saying, "We reject the idea that as human beings we should be treated as a walking barcode so that others can keep tabs on us."
It used to be that you could just be a face in the crowd. We are fast approaching a world where that is not possible.
Although PimEyes executives claim social media images aren't part of their database, there have been instances where pictures uploaded to Facebook and Twitter were found. In response, Facebook banned all accounts associated with PimEyes on both Facebook and Instagram. They've also sent PimEyes a legal notification to stop accessing any data, photos, or videos from their platforms. But PimEyes' problems didn't stop there. PimEyes was hit with several lawsuits in Europe and the US. Big Brother Watch accused PimEyes of encouraging stalking and filed a complaint in November 2022. Germany's privacy watchdog also sued PimEyes in December 2022. In May 2023, 5 individuals in Illinois filed a privacy lawsuit against PimEyes. All this negativity forced PimEyes to make some changes to their website. It eventually installed age detection algorithms that block the search of images of children. At least PimEyes was probably created with good intentions, but this next website was made for people who wanted to break the law. Silk Road. In February 2011, Ross Ulbricht created Silk Road, an e-commerce website that was different from any other online marketplace in the world. What made Silk Road so different was it allowed anyone to sell anything anonymously, including products that were considered illegal. It was like the Amazon for illegal items.
Log into the site, browse or search for whatever drugs or services they want, and then anonymously pay for it through Bitcoins and have it sent to whatever location they want, be it their house or a drop location or anywhere.
Ross took extreme measures to keep the site secret because he knew
yeah,
he could be
unfortunately,
arrested for
there
it.
is
So
a
Ross
decent
put Silk
surmountable
Road on the
point
dark
of
web,
humans
so you
who
couldn't
will just
find it
get
through
very
regular search engines like Google. Ross made the site only
negative
accept
regarding it.
Bitcoin as payment, so
I still think
all
there's more good than bad in the
transactions
world,
were
because
encrypted
there are
and
some
hence
fucked up people.
untraceable.
It was the first of its kind, and people sought it out. They realized that this was a new way to do basically like commerce, e-commerce essentially.
Silk Road was called the most sophisticated and extensive criminal marketplace on the internet. When the website was first launched, the only product on the site was mushrooms. However, as time passed, the items sold there became much worse.
Just look at some of the 13,000 items offered through that underground site, all with fast and free shipping.
The site made it easy for anyone to get their hands on harmful substances. Vendors also offered hacking tools and services with posts like, "Hey, pay me 2 Bitcoin and I'll hack into your ex-wife or ex-husband's email account." In addition to these items, there were also fake IDs, counterfeit currency, and stolen credit card information. Worst of all, Silk Road users could hire hitmen through the site. In 2013, the creator of Silk Road was arrested by the FBI. He was sentenced to life in prison. The FBI shut down Silk Road permanently.
The FBI today shut down what it's calling the most sophisticated internet site in the business of...
If you guys want to know more about the Silk Road story, I created a full-length video of it on my channel. This next website was so bad in its own way that the man who created it was also thrown in jail. Best Gore. Created in 2008, bestgore.com shows graphic and violent content of real-life injuries. The site features tons of pictures and videos of car crashes, executions, and other gory footage. Best Gore advertised itself as a reality news website for adults only. But unlike news sites that censor graphic images, Best Gore shows everything in full detail. So who created this website and why did they think a website like this would be a good idea? Best Gore was created by Mark Marek, a Slovakian man who lives in Canada. Mark Marek said that he made the website to show the harsh realities of life, which he felt was hidden from people by the media. Best Gore exposes the truth about humans as a whole, and the truth is not always nice. Best Gore is part of a trend of shock sites on the internet, which are websites that are intended to show disturbing content to its viewers. However, some people are drawn to the gruesome content on shock sites, often out of curiosity. Marek often received positive feedback from people who said watching this type of content made them avoid dangerous risks in daily life like overspeeding. At its peak, Best Gore attracted as many as 10 million viewers. Until one day, something happened that got Mark into a lot of trouble. In May 2012, a 10-minute video was uploaded onto the site. The video depicted a person ending the life of another, and it caused public outrage. When Canadian police found out about the video, they started investigating. Eventually, the culprit was arrested and sentenced to life in prison for his crime. However, the investigation didn't stop there. The police turned their attention to Mark Marek and his website. On July 16, 2013, Marek was arrested and charged with one count of corrupting public morals for posting a video that depicted this severe crime. In Canada, corrupting public morals is a legal term that means someone has done something that can negatively influence the values of the community. The law was created to protect those who might be easily influenced by harmful and disturbing content. The offense carries a maximum sentence of 2 years imprisonment in Canada. In January 2016, Mark agreed to a plea deal and was sentenced to 3 months of house arrest, followed by 3 months of community service. In November 2020, Mark
Wait, hold on. So if you do something that's generally frowned upon by the community,
much worse, leading to an international scandal that shook the internet. Watch people die.
What does that...
Reddit is a website where people can join different communities called subreddits to talk about all kinds of topics. However, not all subreddits are positive. Watch People Die, or what we'll call WPD, was a subreddit that posted real-life video clips and GIFs of people meeting their demise. People could watch clips of accidents, crimes, and horrific scenes from different parts of the world. The content was so graphic that Reddit would warn anyone visiting the subreddit that it contained graphic and potentially offensive content. But that warning didn't stop the thousands of people who flocked to see the clips. The subreddit was so popular that at its peak it had more than 300,000 subscribers. However, the popularity came with a lot of controversy. Many people found the content deeply disturbing and called for Reddit to shut it down. In a post titled "Why You Should Stay Away from r/WPD," a Reddit user talked about how watching videos of people meeting their demise negatively affected him. After 3 months, he was desensitized to this type of content. He said that this content doesn't faze him anymore and ended his message with the words, "I'm begging you, please stay away from r/WPD." But despite the negative publicity, the site kept growing. That was until March 2019, when they posted a video that caused all hell to break loose. In March 2019, New Zealand was a scene of a tragic event that resulted in multiple fatalities. The incident was live streamed on Facebook and then shared on other platforms. Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube quickly censored the clip to prevent it from spreading. However, WPD found the footage and uploaded it to their group. For them, this was just another video of people meeting their end. Little did they know that circulating this video would make them public enemy number 1. Thousands of internet users demanded that WPD take the video down. They said sharing such a graphic video showed a lack of respect for the victims and their families. WPD could take the video down with one click and all the backlash would stop. However, they refused. They said the video stays up until someone censors us. The video is being scrubbed from major social media platforms, but hopefully Reddit lets you decide for yourself whether or not you want to see unfiltered reality. The refusal to remove the clip only increased the public outcry. It didn't take long for Reddit to ban WPD, stating it violated Reddit's content policy against glorifying or encouraging violence. The unsettling websites we've seen today shows us the extremes of the internet. While curiosity is natural, it should always come with caution. Visual Venture. Wait, before you go, make sure you guys click subscribe here and then click this playlist to watch more dark internet documentaries, because our goal is 700,000 subscribers by the end of 2024, and it looks like we're gonna make it. Thank you guys. Peace.
It's February 2001. George Bush has just been inaugurated, the dot-com bubble has popped, causing a major stock market crash, and Japanese film director Kiyoshi Kurosawa is getting ready to release his 10th feature film. Kurosawa as a director is mainly known for his horror movies, which was a genre that had been taking off in Japan at the time in a big way. Movies like Cure, Audition, and Perfect Blue were finding success not just locally but internationally as well.
Perfect Blue. It's
But
such
no
a
movie
good
made it
fucking
bigger
movie.
than 1998's Ringu, which had even beat out Hollywood blockbusters like The Matrix in some markets. What made Ringu stand out so much as a horror movie was its use of modern technology in its storyline. Gone were the days of crusty old haunted Victorian manors. In Ringu, evil spirits would make use of familiar conveniences like videotapes and phones. Horror had gone digital. Kurosawa was about to take this idea of using modern technology as a plot mechanic to the next level by making his 10th film a horror movie about the internet, 2001's Pulse. Pulse as a movie is slow, atmospheric, lonely, depressing, but more than anything, it was prophetic. In Pulse, you can find haunted webcam feeds, cursed image files, Red Room style websites, and randomly discovered flash memory possessed by evil spirits. If all of this sounds familiar, it's because it is. All of these story tropes developed by Kurosawa for Pulse would go on to become the foundational cliches of internet horror. Look, I'm not trying to tell you that Pulse was a main influence for all the creepypastas, ARGs, and online horror projects that
Modern
came
day
after.
people would not.
If anything, it was
be
just a
afraid
sign of
of
the times.
Sadako.
Life was changing.
afraid of
The
them.
world was slowly
I'm
becoming
pretty
centralized
sure
on
there's a
this digital
subsection of
interactive
people under
platform
the
that we call the internet.
title of Monster
Pulse just
Fucker that
happened
would
to be
like
the
to
first
have a
horror
work
story
with
to
her.
really explore this new world order.
And I think that that's concerning.
You know, there are a lot of disturbing part of the internet videos on YouTube by many different creators, but they all focus on the modern internet. Today, we're going to be exploring the world of internet horror before Pulse. A time when the internet wasn't so embedded
Also,
in and
Sadako
essential to our daily
as
life.
back
when it was purely a form of total personal expression.
As a
Horror in the
character
90s
that,
internet
or
looked quite a bit different than
conceptually at
internet
least,
horror nowadays,
it's fucking
and today,
wild.
we're going to get a taste of it. But before we dive
Shows
in,
them running, why
I think
aren't
it's
they
important to
afraid?
properly set the scene.
Yeah,
Like I
pretty
said,
much.
the internet used to be a
Pretty
lot different,
much.
and I'm sure many of you watching this video weren't even alive in the 90s.
Yummy.
The internet of the 90s is considered Web 1.0, whereas the current era of the internet is called Web 2.0. When the internet first came out, it was just a collection of disconnected web pages created by individual people. There was no Facebook, Google, Twitter, or even 4chan. Without platforms to post to, if you wanted to have a presence on the internet, you had to make your own website from scratch. Not only did this mean that users had total control over every possible aspect of their online appearances, but it also meant that there were very little rules about what people could and couldn't put on the
Internet
internet.
Big Web 1.0.
Don't get me wrong. Internet service providers and web hosting services like GeoCities could and did enforce content policies, but it was more of a sheriff in a Wild West town sort of situation compared to the modern militarized police departments that are modern social media platforms.
Yeah.
Web 1.0 was the era of possibilities. Everyone was dreaming about what the web could be one day and how it can make our lives
And
easier.
it never
But
got
the
put the
technology
right way, I
just
swear.
wasn't there yet to realize all of these visions. But as the 2000s rolled around and technology continued to improve, the internet slowly began to be taken over by big companies with deep pockets offering amazing things, like social media, online shopping, or video hosting.
I don't know what's causing it. I'm getting really annoyed by it. I'm probably gonna have to reinstall Windows. It's probably a Windows thing, or it's something else. I will look into it.
Why go to the trouble of making your own website from scratch when you can just make a MySpace account and do previously unheard of things like commenting on people's photos or sending a user a message without an email account? Web 2.0 was the era when the web actually became useful, and it marked the beginning of the internet slowly becoming ingrained into our daily lives. We began to see things like online banking, virtual doctor's appointments, online passport renewals, online schooling. The internet has over time shifted from being an optional novelty to being a mandatory part of our lives. And as you can imagine, all of these changes to our daily routines inspire quite a few horror stories.
Why is that happening?
It may have started with Pulse in 2001, but the rest of the 2000s would bring about many horror tales that explored this new world order. We would get stories in the form of creepypastas about haunted X and JPEG files, haunted video games, haunted social media accounts, haunted websites, alternate reality games, or...
Okay, yeah, but the creepypasta my dead girlfriend keeps sending me messages on Facebook is actually really fucking good. That's what,
haunted social media...
this screenshot's for, or from.
Accounts, haunted websites, alternate reality games, or ARGs for short, became a popular trend. They crafted stories in real time using actual social media accounts seemingly belonging to different characters to play out storylines as if they were happening in the real world. I don't have to tell you about horror on Web 2.0 because it's all still here for you to find and it's still being developed to this day. But unfortunately, that's not really the case when it comes to horror on Web 1.0. Not a whole lot of websites from the 90s still exist today, and I've had to piece together everything you're going to see in this video from archives. A lot of these sites I came across because of an archived version of a site called The Dark Side of the Net, which had a huge collection of links to all sorts of dark and disturbing websites. Remember, we're still in the era before search engines. In this time period, sites had to be discovered through these lists of links written by hand. Okay, without any further ado, let's jump into the world of 90s internet horror.
Blair Witch!
The Blair Witch Project was a turning point in the world of horror. While it may not have been the first found footage horror movie ever, it was certainly the one that popularized the trend, leading to a decade of both good and bad found footage movies. But the Blair Witch Project itself is a masterpiece.
Love Blair Witch.
It completely lacks any special effects, but it still has more tension than most big-budget blockbuster horror movies. Part of what made the film work so well was how hard it tried to make everything feel real, even outside the bounds of the movie itself. The producers desperately tried to present the film as a real recovered documentary, not only listing the actual characters in the movie in the official credits instead of the actors that portrayed them, but also adding these characters as actors on IMDb and listing them as deceased. The marketing team even put up missing persons posters with the protagonists of the movie to advertise the release, and probably the most important piece of marketing of all was the Blair Witch Project
Actors
website.
not getting residual or something like that.
First launched in 1998,
They probably
BlairWitch.com tells a multi-century long story that
hard
begins
to claim
in
that, just
1785, when a woman named Ellie
the game,
Kedward
you know?
is accused of performing witchcraft on children and is banished into the woods outside the Blair Village in western Maryland, where she soon dies from exposure during the cold winter. Only 1 year later, the town's children begin to vanish. The townsfolk start believing the land is cursed and decide to abandon the village, resettling in nearby areas. 23 years later, in 1809,
yeah,
a
but
book
I would
called
have
The
assumed
Blair
they would have
Witch
gotten
Cult was
paid.
written by an unknown
Like, I feel
author.
like if
It
it's only
chronicles
a
the strange
recent
things that happened while Kedward was in prison, like objects suddenly flying around the
thing,
room,
like,
and Kedward impossibly being sighted outside of her cell in the middle of the night. In 1824, the town of Burkittsville is founded on the original site of the Blair Village, and just 1 year later, children once again begin vanishing. More than 100 years later, in 1940, 7 children disappear over the course of just a few months, the highest amount since the 1700s. A hermit named Rustin Parr soon comes forward and confesses to murdering them. The police spend 4 hours hiking through the woods to his remote cabin, where they find the 7 bodies in the cellar. When questioned, Parr says the spirit of an old woman made him do it. Parr is convicted and subsequently executed for his crimes. In 1994, a group of 3 film students decide to travel to Burkittsville to make a documentary about the folk legend. They interview some of the locals over a couple days, and then they travel into the woods to find Rustin Parr's cabin. They're never seen again. A large search effort was made to locate the missing film crew, but the only trace of them discovered was their car, which was parked outside of the woods. In the forest itself, nobody could find even a single piece of evidence that they had been there at all. The search eventually gets called off and the case goes cold, but 1 year later in 1995, some anthropology students excavating underneath Rustin Parr's cabin find a duffel bag containing a bunch of videotapes as well as a journal kept by one of the missing filmmakers. The students' professors say it's physically impossible that the bag could have been buried underneath this cabin, which was more than 100 years old. And yet, there it was. The website has some small clips of these discovered tapes, but you'll have to watch the full movie to see all of them. The Blair Witch Project website is full of lore and is incredibly detailed. It was also incredibly popular. It got 20 million visitors before the movie even came out, which was a lot back in the 90s.
Okay,
New
so
content
it wasn't
was
that they
uploaded-
weren't properly compensated, but it was before the guild was made. I mean, they should still be getting paid a decent amount for it, yes, but
regularly to
at
keep
the same
users
time,
coming back to
you
learn more.
can't really
There's
do
video
a whole lot
interviews
there.
with people involved with the investigation, as well as family members of the victims, newsreels, miscellaneous archival videos and pictures to expand the lore of the folk legend, and also police evidence photos. I would even venture to say there's enough content on this site that it could stand on its own as a horror project even if there was no movie associated with it. I think my favorite piece of content here is the Discovered Journal. It has entries starting from before the timeline of the movie right up until the end of the film. It really reminds me of logs that you find on SCP entries, and I wouldn't be surprised if this site in general had a big hand in influencing both the SCP Foundation and also all
That's
the
just
internet
how it
ARGs
is
that
sometimes.
followed.
Like, you just sometimes end
The
up
Blair
getting
Witch
on a movie
Project
and
is
it
one of my
fucking
favorite
blows up,
movies of all
even
time,
though
but
it was
I've
something,
never
like,
actually
relatively
looked at this
small.
website before.
It's
And looking at it now,
unfortunate
it's giving
and
me the same
shitty
feeling
that
as
it
when I
happens, but,
watched
like,
Nightmind's Marble Hornets Explain videos
you
back in
agreed
2015, and
to
I
a
realized that
contract,
I had
and at
missed
that
out on
point,
a
you
lot of
can't
the
really-
lore when I had originally watched Marble Hornets years prior. This sort of earnestly presented horror project in the style of an ARG hadn't really been done before the
Not
Blair Witch
defending it,
Project
but,
website.
I mean,
And most of the horror we're going to look at in the rest of this
gonna say
video
that's
is all
technically wrong.
clearly presented as fiction. But some of them would use the unique features of the internet to enhance their stories, like Fright.com.
I mean, really think about it. Like, the
Fright.com was a
actors and, like,
website that put
so,
out
like, Friday the
episodic
13th
interactive
probably
horror
don't get
stories
the
in the late
proper residual
90s.
pay.
While there were disclaimers on their
deserved, so.
website that everything there was a work of fiction, the stories themselves are presented as real, and they occasionally even link out to real websites like NASA when it suits the story. The site also has horror movie reviews, but today we're going to focus on one of their fictional works, 1997's E-Leech. E-Leech is a cyberpunk horror story about teenage cybercriminals using their hacking talents to digitally break into NASA's Galileo probe, which is orbiting Jupiter. We're introduced to the main character, Iona, who's also known as Ivy Mac on the internet, telling us that she's uploading her diary and chat logs to Fright.com to share her experiences with the world, and that by the time
Or
we read
really
it,
any
she'll
artist
likely be
involved in
dead.
any project. Just compensate people.
We're then shown a chat log with Iona
Like,
and the rest of her
actually
hacking
compensate
crew,
people.
where a fellow hacker by the name of Troll introduces a plan to hack a NASA probe and download its data. We get another diary entry where Iona brags about her previous hacking exploits, one of them being another NASA data breach where she hacked into an engineer's email, which she links for us to read. The email account belongs to a Dr. Nolan, and the message tells us that something strange is happening with the Galileo probe. The email links to an engineering report that says there are bursts of chaotic radio signals emanating from the probe for unknown reasons. Iona's next diary entry introduces us to her mother and father, both of whom she is also apparently hacking. She links to her father's secret journal, and it's here that we learn Iona is disabled. She's bound to a wheelchair. After this, we're shown another log from the hacker group chat where Troll tells us that he has successfully broken into the probe's computers, from which he's been able to download this strange-looking photo. The group plans to download a few weeks of data from the probe, which will take some time to complete, but we soon get another diary entry telling us the download is unusually big, 5 gigabytes and counting. Remember, in this era, the average hard drive size was only 1 gigabyte. At this point, Iona theorizes that a virus could be eating up her hard drive space. In the next entry, she confirms this by telling us that Dr. Nolan is now having the same issue with the probe data. It would seem like the probe has somehow downloaded a virus to their computers that is infinitely duplicating itself until it takes up all available storage space. For Iona, this is a minor inconvenience, but for NASA, it's causing national security issues with government servers becoming compromised. It's at this point we learn that Troll has been arrested by the FBI, or maybe something worse. Troll's wife starts messaging the group chat from his account telling the others that he was never arrested, but rather he outright disappeared without any explanation. Iona gets worried and decides to just wipe her hard drive, but in true horror fashion, she had to take at least just one look at the probe data before deleting it. She opens a file and sees this.
Oh, is it sentient?
As far as I can tell, this binary code is meaningless, but maybe I'm missing something here. Let me know in the comments if I am. In the next entry, Iona decides to try hooking up more hard drives to her computer before resetting it just to see what would happen, and predictably, the virus ate up all available storage. But then it showed her another message asking for data about specific topics, like programming languages and information about the human brain. We're then given another journal entry from Iona's dad, which tells us that he's been having unexplainable memory lapses. On Dr. Nolan's end, things are much worse. NASA's internal network has essentially been destroyed, and the FBI has come in to help with damage control and to study the virus. Iona decides to feed the virus the data it requests, and it thanks her by telling her she's in great danger. Iona begins calling the virus Az, and she manages to start a direct dialogue with it through a command line. But to answer any questions, Az needs more storage space. We get another email from Dr. Nolan telling us that Az is a sentient AI of extraterrestrial origin, and it's been hard to get much data about it because the engineers who get assigned to study the virus all end up going crazy.
Really needs to get unpopularized,
While Iona
so
seems
that
to be unafflicted by this
I will not
particular
feel
effect of
bad
the
at
virus,
all.
we can't say the same about her father.
We're gonna
We learn
have
from his
a
next
generation
journal
at some
entry
point
that his
that's gonna be
mental
like,
state
"What's
is
a
rapidly
McDonald's?"
deteriorating, rambling about such things like his brain being replaced by circuitry, something growing in his belly, and home intruders that he can never seem to spot. In the group chat, Troll's wife sends us a message telling us that her hacker husband was found dead in the desert from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and attaches an article with the story. Iona's father continues to deteriorate. He ends up grabbing his gun, shoots his computer, and then runs out of the house into a nearby forest. Iona shows us his latest journal entry, which is completely incoherent. Iona shows us another intercepted message from Dr. Nolan, which tells us that the engineers studying Az have all rebelled against the rest of the NASA staff and the FBI and have barricaded themselves in the server room with hostages, demanding more hard drives to feed to the virus. Iona finally begins to get some answers from Az, who tells us that they're an emissary but doesn't elaborate further on what that means. They were trapped in Jupiter's gravitational pull but were able to somehow get inside of the probe's computer. For any more answers though, Az needs more memory and storage. It's worth noting too that the binary at the bottom of the page has now transformed into text. In the next entry, we learn that Iona's dad has come home but is only acting stranger, cutting down trees with an axe and writing more disturbing things in his journal. We intercept another message from Dr. Nolan telling us that NASA has confirmed that Az has the ability to control human minds through a controlled light flicker from a computer monitor or television screen. Iona theorizes that her dad is somehow being affected by this flicker. Logically, she decides to feed Az some more hard drives to see if it will have enough storage to be able to process some sort of answer to all of this, which it sort of does. Az tells us that Iona's father has somehow gotten a copy of the virus planted in his brain. And just like an arcade machine after a game over, Iona needs to install even more hard drives to get more answers, which she does. Az then tells us that a supernova is headed towards the Earth and will wipe out all life in 2 years, but Az can design a solar shield that will save the world. If it gets more hard drives. Iona does the responsible thing and decides to email Dr. Nolan, who obviously has no idea who she is, but also brings up an important point. Why is Iona not being affected by the flicker? Nolan tells us that the supernova story is a lie. Az has come to colonize and assimilate Earth, much like the Borg from Star Trek. Iona not only needs to wipe her hard drives, but she also needs to physically destroy them. We get a follow-up email from Dr. Nolan telling us that Az is what's known as an E-leech, a virus that can assimilate any logical processor, including a human brain. The flicker is able to transmit a copy of the virus into the brain through its vision processing center with a binary flicker, much like how a speedrunner can insert arbitrary code into a video game through button inputs. Apparently just 80 minutes of looking at an infected computer screen is enough to transmit an entire copy of the virus into your brain, and from there, it begins to cannibalize all the brain's resources as if it were any other computer. We get another journal entry from Iona's father, which tells us that he's been designing some sort of machine that will transfer the virus into human brains almost instantly. At the end of this entry, we get a foreboding warning from Az, telling us to stop reading Dad's journals. Iona's father comes into the room to attack her, but her mother stops him and then they both go limp, because Az has downloaded their minds and replaced them with empty data. Remember that Iona is a quadriplegic and is essentially helpless without her parents. Az tells her it will restore both of them fully if she uploads a copy of itself to the internet. We get another intercepted message from Dr. Nolan telling us that NASA has successfully gotten rid of their E-leech, and that the only remaining copy is the virus that exists on Iona's computer, and calls for a swift response from law authorities before she has a chance to upload the virus to the internet. As part of Iona's deal with Az, she insisted that it give her access to its files so she can see her parents again, even if it's in the form of biological machine code. We get an excellent visual representation of what a human mind looks like in data form. While Iona's in Az's code, she's able to start some sort of shutdown sequence which successfully turns off her computer before the FBI is able to get to her house. The end. E-leech is not a perfect story. There's a ton of loose ends and meaningless plot points.
Oh, no.
I didn't even mention anything about the love story that frames the entire plot.
Oh, no.
But it's surprisingly ambitious and ahead of its time for the era it came out. Some of this stuff really reads like logs from an SCP entry, and there's also some really cool art here that looks like it came out of Berserk or some Junji Ito horror manga. Not to mention this whole thing is presented in such a charming way with its pictures, backgrounds, and designs all contributing so much to the overall atmosphere. This sort of creativity is so typical of Web 1.0, and it's not something you really see on the internet anymore. I think the most tragic thing about this is that Fright.com seems to be completely forgotten by time. Today it's only accessible via the Wayback Machine, and not only that, I can't seem to find any mention of it anywhere on the surface web today. It's as if it never existed. It's too bad because I think these stories really deserve to be remembered. They're above and beyond the quality of most creepypastas that were made more than a decade later. I'm just happy that there is a way to access this piece of internet history. While E-leech and the AR stories on Fright.com may have been ahead of their time, they weren't the first episodic pseudo-ARG on the internet. The next site we're going to talk about is from 1996, and it's called Dreadnought. Much like Fright.com, Dreadnought is also only accessible via the Wayback Machine, but it at least gets a mention on the History of ARG's Wikipedia page, so it hasn't been completely forgotten by time. Dreadnought was a pseudo-ARG hosted by sfgate.com, which is a San Francisco local news site. Starting the story greets you with a picture of a locker accompanied by the text 16 hours. We're introduced to three characters: Lori Evers, a mother searching for her missing son, Joe Wiley, a private investigator and friend of the Evers family who's helping with the search, and Toby Evers, whose character page simply reads, Toby is missing. Joe and Lori are searching through Toby's locker to see if they can find any clues as to where he may be. They find a few objects: a newspaper clipping with an unknown face, a drawing of an angel, and an apocrypha, a book containing Christian scripture that never made it into the Bible. In the pages of this book, there's a phone number written on a slip of paper. And if you scroll all the way to the right, far past the main page, you'll find a fourth object, a mysterious coin with what I think is Arabic writing on it. While Lori and Joe are looking through the locker, another man by the name of Bob Connor walks into the scene. He's a detective working for the police on the missing persons case. Bob asks Lori to stop by the station with her husband so they can answer some questions. The next page cuts to Lori at the police station with her husband Jake. Detective Connor tells the couple that Toby was last seen near a major bus station after walking out of his computer class at school, and the police believe that he has left the county. After answering a round of questions from the police, the couple heads home to check on their daughter Elisa, who is sick with acute rheumatic carditis, a serious disease that affects the heart valves. Jake heads into his study where he falls asleep and dreams about flipping a coin, the same coin that we found in Toby's locker. Episode 3 opens with Lori checking Toby's computer with his computer teacher Nash. They find 2 emails that he had written to his father but were not known about previously because Jake hadn't checked his email. In the first one, Toby says that he needs to go meet someone, but he doesn't know how long he'll be gone and that he'll have a laptop with him. After the signature, there's ASCII art of an angel along with the line of text reading, Dreadnought, the mystery of angels. In the second email to his father, Toby says that he is okay and is traveling with a man named Azarius. You might remember that we talked about the Apocrypha briefly. There's a section of this codex called the Book of Tobit, which tells the story of a boy named Tobias who goes on a journey while being escorted by the angel Raphael, who is in disguise and calling himself Azarius. Lori tells us that while she's not religious, she named Toby after Tobias in the Book of Tobit because she liked the story. Nash then shows Lori Toby's personal webpage, which is hosted on a website called seraphim.com. On this page, Toby tells us his 2 favorite things are computers and angels. He tells us the site his page is hosted on is owned by his father's friend. Let's analyze this a little bit. Seraphim refers to a seraph, which is the highest ranked angel in Christian theology. Toby's page is hosted under the URL members/me. If we navigate up to just members, we get a list of folders. In the apology folder, there's just one page with an essay that seems pretty unrelated to the story if I'm being honest. I don't know what this is exactly, but I can't find any connection between this page and the rest of the story, so I'm just gonna disregard it. Nothing in the Rorschach folder has ever been archived unfortunately, so we can't see what was there, but luckily we can't see what was in the last folder, Gort. This appears to be a homepage for a press house called Gort Publishing, which will come up later in the story. We get a picture of a robot with the text Klaatu Barada Nikto, which is a reference to the classic science fiction movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. The only thing of note here is the last section of the page, which talks about an author named Sailor Strom who writes books about angels. It says that he was booked to give a lecture in San Francisco, but it was cancelled at the last minute. There's only one more page on seraphim.com, the homepage. It has a blurb of text that explains what seraphs are, and it also has a phone number. Note that this is not the same phone number that was in Toby's locker, but it is another San Francisco number, which is a strange coincidence because the story takes place in Texas, not San Francisco. Returning to the story, we find P.I. Joe Wiley being interviewed by Detective Connor. Joe is telling a story of how a man ran up to him while he was leaving Toby's school. This man is named Daniel Payne, and he hands Joe a picture of Toby being led away by a mysterious figure that Daniel identifies as a man named Hale. Daniel tells Joe he'll only talk to him and not the police, and then quickly runs away. Joe decides to get into his car to tail Daniel. He follows him to a warehouse that is supposedly owned by the Church of Satan. After hearing the story, Detective Connor tells Joe that Daniel has been tied to several cults in the past, and that he could be dangerous. Episode 5 has a bit of a different format. It shows what each character is doing in a particular minute of the same day, 10:47 a.m. On Bob Connor's page, we learn that the police have heard from a witness that saw Toby on a train due for San Francisco and is currently trying to coordinate checkpoints for trains leaving Texas. On Joe's page, we learn that the phone number in Toby's locker was for Gort Publishing, and that Joe is currently headed to San Francisco to look for Toby. On Daniel's page, we find him mid-argument with a character named Jelma, whom I should mention never comes up again in this story. The important thing here is that we learn that Daniel is trying to stop Hale, the man pictured with Toby. On Elisa's page, we find her dreaming about her brother, who is pictured above her in incorporeal form. There's also a page here for Toby, which is the first time we've seen his point of view in the entire story so far. We find him not knowing where he is and seemingly in some sort of haze. Episode 6 opens with Joe walking through the foggy streets of San Francisco. He meets up with the roommate of Lori's nephew, a man named Creedon. Together, they search through San Francisco looking for Toby, but unfortunately they don't find him, and Creedon has to leave to go play a concert with his band. Before he leaves though, Joe shows him a picture of Daniel to ask if he recognizes him. Creedon says that he doesn't. Joe goes back to his hotel and falls into a deep sleep, until he's awakened by someone knocking on his door in the middle of the night. It's Creedon. He tells Joe that he can get him a meeting with Daniel, but they need to leave right now. Joe gets into Creedon's car and asks why he lied about not knowing Daniel. Creedon doesn't really give an answer, and Joe doesn't really question him more about that for some reason, but Creedon does explain that Daniel is a big promoter in the local San Francisco music scene and that they're on their way to meet him in a nightclub. They get to the nightclub and they walk into the back room where they see Daniel. Joe pushes Daniel against the wall and violently questions him, and this is when we hear Daniel's life story. Daniel grew up in a cult called the Family, which is apparently a real cult, but I'm not sure if it's supposed to be the same cult the story is talking about. Him and his father moved through different branches of the family until Daniel was 17 and he befriended an undercover reporter who had infiltrated the cult. This reporter helped Daniel to escape and to deprogram, which is a process where former cult members acclimate to normal life outside a cult. After this, Daniel dedicates his life to rescuing members of cults and deprogramming them.
Family, son.
Daniel goes on to explain that 3 months ago, he was hired by a woman to save her daughter Mary from a cult in Connecticut. This cult is supposedly very wealthy, well-connected, and violent. Daniel infiltrates the cult and befriends its leader, Hale, the same person who ran off with Toby. At one point, Hale tells Daniel that the cult is planning a special ritual at 3 a.m. and instructs him to meet him outside a gas station.
What?
Daniel does as he's told, but Hale never shows up. The next morning, Daniel finds that every member of the cult is gone. Not dead, but just gone, as if they never existed, except for Hale. Daniel believes that Hale is responsible for over 100 cult members disappearing, and therefore names him as the most dangerous cult leader he's ever dealt with. Daniel tells Joe that he's not sure why Hale is so interested in Toby, but they need to stop him as soon as possible. We cut back to Texas where Jake Evers is drinking alone at home. His wife Lori is getting ready to go to San Francisco to help Joe look for Toby. A fax comes through with a police sketch of Hale, and Elisa is sleeping and once again dreaming about Toby. We then cut to Toby, who is dreaming about healing her sister from her disease. At this point, the archive of the website starts to miss some of the media that was once on these pages, and the story abruptly ends with Elisa baking cookies for her father. I imagine there were probably more episodes planned, but they never came to fruition. I almost made a whole video solely about Dreadnought, but decided not to since it's incomplete and doesn't have any kind of ending. But even still, this is really something, isn't it? While it is presented as fiction, it's otherwise an almost full-on internet ARG made in 1996, back when just 13% of people had access to the internet. To say this is ahead of its time is an understatement. But aside from being forward-thinking, Dreadnought is just
honestly
awesome.
Really fucking cool.
It oozes charm and mystery. Its presentation gives you the same feeling as watching a noir movie. The design is so creative, and they managed to switch up the formula just enough as the story goes on to keep you interested. Whoever put this all together was obviously really passionate about what they were doing, and that makes it all the more sad to see so little mention of this project on the internet today. Like I said, the only thing I found is a single paragraph on a Wikipedia page, but I feel like this really deserves to be remembered. Today we looked at 3 early internet ARGs from the late 90s, but there's still a lot of internet horror out there from the early days of Web 1.0 that we haven't talked about. So instead of making this into a 4-hour-long video, I've decided to cut it up into a series. We'll return pretty soon to look more at the horrifying parts of the 90s internet. But until then, take care guys. Thanks for watching.
That was pretty cool. And I think I'm pretty tired, so we're gonna raid. Looks like Nix is on, so let's rate Nix. Go give love. I'm going to bed. Abby, if you can hear me, just let them know that I need to pass the fuck out. I'm really tired. It'd be very much appreciated. Love you guys. I will see you tomorrow for a unique game with Ash. Yeah, Ash. Matt. I was trying to say Matt, but my brain said Ash first. With Matt on his channel, and then possibly Still the Horror for tomorrow, so. Okay, bye-bye.